So
Yeah, I don't know. I thought overall the way it started, right? My wife is up there, and forgive my dog barking, but my wife was up there and she's listened to it and she's just like, "Oh, this sucks." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she shut it off. She shut it off 20 minutes in, less than 20 minutes in. So I'll make this point up front to you guys. When they went to the first break, they came back. It was a different format for 40 minutes. So, like I
oh yeah.
said in the chat, I was just like,
yep.
I guarantee you, because ratings are in real time now, and they get real time ratings. Even Ben Shapiro gets real time ratings during his recordings, right? And he's like, whatever. So I guarantee you, those ratings dropped off, and somebody with some wasta got up there, talked to the moderators, talked to each and every one of the candidates, and said, "You guys better tone it down because you're not doing yourselves any favors. You need to STFU and get on track."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, dude, I mean, it was almost cringe, right? It was almost embarrassing. You were embarrassed for them. I'm just like, wow, it's like you brought, well, I mean, Dana Perino, she's part of their main lineup. Stuart Varney, and then the other lady, I've never even heard of her. I mean, I guess she's from Univision or whatever, but I don't think, two of the three, I don't think were the strongest moderators anyway. And you do need to have some type A, assertive personalities if you're going to moderate, right? But I think one of you called it. I don't know if it was Josh or Luke, that they cut the mics after the first 15 minutes, because first 15 minutes, man, I mean, it was like listening to my kids. They're just sitting here bickering. I didn't touch that. Yes, you did. No, I saw. I'm like, oh my Lord, this is like my kids, back in their teenage years again. And then you can tell, just like I think you're spot on, Luke. They got through that first commercial break and they're like, hey, we're going to un-F this, and this was going to happen. And then they started cutting mics. And then I think if you notice towards the end again, they opened up some mics. Like when Bergam tried to interject a couple times, I think they opened it back up for some individuals that they wanted to hear more of, or maybe get some more time on.
Yeah, it started off. I seriously contemplated turning it off after like the first 10 minutes. I was like, this is terrible. It's absolutely it was it was romper room with adults. Um, but yeah, I mean they got back on track, and it actually turned into a really good debate. So I'm gonna go ahead and rank mine, and then we can debate later. But I'm gonna rank my top three, who I think the top three were, and then Luke, you rank yours, Roger, rate yours, and then we can talk, about each one. But just hot take, rank them without any discussion. So again, mine, DeSantis, Burgum, and as much as it pains me to say, Christie. Luke.
Yeah, I will. I will. I'll echo Josh's. I agree, and because Chris Christie finished so strong, he finished so strong in the last, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. And I do think it bears more discussion on who the biggest loser was, right? But I'll go with Josh's rankings. I'll go with I try, Josh. I try not to be biased, right? Because I wanted Ron DeSantis to win. So I try to be objective about it, but I'm still, and maybe Roger will bring us down to earth on this, but I'm still going to put DeSantis at one. Then I'll go with Burgum. Did himself the most favors, right? And then Christie because he finished so strong. Roger.
Nope, totally agree. Totally agree. I think Ron was the most consistent. I mean, he had a couple answers here and there that flailed, but hey, nobody's going to be perfect. Kind of went off tangent a couple of times because Josh said it before. It's like, how are you going to stop nuclear proliferation? You've got 15 seconds to respond. It's like, okay, that's just not going to work. So they've got so much stuff in their head, right? And they've got so many talking points they're trying to get out. So you try to hurry up and answer the question and move on and cover those other things in the back of your filing cabinet. So I think he was the most consistent. No glaring errors on his side. I think Burgum did a lot to. What's going to happen with Burgum is the same thing that happened with Vivek last time. People right now are gurgling his name. Like, who is this dude? What does he stand for? And then I agree with you. Chris, I think he had a rough start. I won't go too far into it. I'll kick it back over to Josh. But I think what Christie did, one, it took him, was it him or Burgum that brought up states' rights first? I think it was Christie that brought up states' rights early on. But, and we've had this discussion talking about the polls and the other guy that wasn't at the debate, but he made his strategy is to go after the 45%. Okay, if you believe all the polls and this and that out there, it's like, okay, that 55 that's with him is 55. You got to get it down to a 1-2 pan or 1-2 person show. And so I think what I saw from him at the end, which I thought was one of the, his best closeouts that I've seen so far and his best speeches, is he made a concerted effort to go after the 45%. 55%, you guys, hey man, we got to get to the Super Bowl. And that's how you do it. And I think as much as I hate Christie, I like that approach.
Yep. No, I agree. Chrissy finished. Man, he's finished so strong. There was a couple of answers, and I forget exactly which one it was, but when he answered it, I was like, "Is that Chris Christie, or is that somebody else in a fat suit impersonating Chris Christie?" Like I was shocked. I was shocked. But right, yeah, you're absolutely right, Luke. We got to talk about who's the biggest loser, and I think the biggest loser is Vivek. I think he was the
Absolutely.
biggest loser tonight. He got absolutely creamed, and Luke pointed it out. Everybody ganged up on Vivek, to include the moderators. It was readily apparent that people jumped on Vivek, to include the moderators, from the get go. The spat that him and Nikki Haley got into was absolutely, it was, as Key and Peele would say in one of their videos, churlish. Uh, you know, it was absolutely churlish. It was like two fifth graders fighting on the playground. It was fairly ridiculous. But yeah, Vivek got creamed all night long in some of his answers. It seems to be Vivek's answer is, a lot of it is in line with Pence's. Is what's the answer? More government, federal bans. You know, legislation at the federal level. To prevent kids under 16 from having access to social media. And you're like, dude, to stand there in the Reagan Library of all places and think that more government is the answer is absolutely asinine, and it's a slap in the face to Reagan himself. So I think Vivek was the biggest loser, and I think I don't know what he does to come back from that. Not that he had a shot in winning this anyway, but
He's
yeah,
done.
I think he took a beating.
Yeah, he did. And, like we were saying in the chat, it's like not only will people like us pile on him for some of his answers, but the mainstream media will take some of the things he said during that. And man, the sound bites are just made to order. It was crazy, some of the stuff he was saying. And Josh was like, the Gulag Guard is coming out in him, which is, man, it was kind of crazy to see. And I kind of feel bad for him, right? Because he did so well in the last one. He did so well that Damon, who is a certified 100% grade A heterosexual, was really reconsidering his stances. And I kind of feel bad for him because I think he's shell shocked after that. I'm sitting here. I still have Fox News up, and Vivek with his bad hair is talking to Sean Hannity right now. But what I found interesting was the South Carolina, headbanging that was going on there between Tim Scott and Nikki Haley. I mean, and I didn't see that benefited either one of them. Man, they really went head to head. I mean, Tim Scott came out, he took his gloves off, and he was ready to go. And it was fun to see. But again, Tim Scott's like, what are you doing for yourself? I don't necessarily see him as a loser, right? I agree with Josh. Vivek is the biggest loser in this debate. Tim Scott wasn't necessarily a loser, but he didn't do himself any favors either. It's just like, well, Tim Scott is just where he was, at the end of the last debate. Mike Pence was absolutely invisible, to me at least. And again, I'm a little bit biased, so trying to remain objective. It's like, what did Mike Pence accomplish? It's like 1988 called, bro. You are out. You're out of your depth here. You're not on the right stage. People want to talk about Burgum again. Who are we leaving out here? We talk about Tim Scott. We talk about Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Vivek, Christie, and then Burgum, right? I mean,
Right, yeah.
The first debate, I don't know in the podcast if we called it out too much, when we recorded right after, but I mean, Burgum makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, when we're sitting here talking in the chat, because we got to try to separate what we talked about on the Slack channel. And I'm really disappointed in Gary for not being in the Slack channel tonight, along with a lot of other people who are going to listen to this, because it really is fun. So we got to differentiate. And, we all said, I think everyone agreed in the Slack channel that I think Burgum would be a great president. Not a great one. I think he'd be a good president. He
Yeah.
says all the right things. He makes all the sense in the world. But it's just like, it's the same thing like Josh's stance on Trump, right? It's like, is this guy electable? It's like a lot of people would make a great president, but it's just like, I like, okay, all that to say, I like Doug Burgum. I, I, I think he's solid, but is he electable?
No, we said it after the first debate about Burgum because Burgum was the only one in the first debate who correctly answered the question on abortion. When Burgum stood up there and said, "God, this belongs to the states. Like the Supreme Court decided this is a 10th Amendment issue and it belongs to the states." And everybody else was like, even DeSantis, which I'm a little biased toward at this point, is like, "Oh no, federal ban at 6 weeks, federal ban at 15 weeks." And Burgum was the only one who was like, no, like it's already been decided. It's a state's issue." And we were like, that guy gets it. He gets it. So yeah, no, man, we called him early.
And I think much like both of you guys, Vivek got hammered. I think him and Nikki Haley were the biggest losers. Vivek, we didn't call this because it's so easy. You get caught up on the momentum. You get caught up on the sound bites and the staged interviews and this and that. But Vivek, his performance was like the second-year NFL quarterback. Hey man, you come out that first year, nobody's got any game tape on you. You just kind of come out of nowhere out of left year, and you know what? Out of left field, and the guy's got a little bit of an arm, and he can throw, and you've got some good receivers. And next thing you know, yeah, Mike Vick, right? It's like, hey, this guy might be a player. But now after your first debate, now people have gurgled him. They've gone back, pulled up his YouTube videos, and he's getting hammered, just like with independent pundits. Yeah, Kaepernick. Yeah, he's trying to go back to the Jets. Good Lord. But you get sidetracked, man. But he was even getting hammered with some of the independent pundits. They're starting to pull up some of his game tape, right? Some of his old interviews, his YouTube videos, this and that. And I think when you look at with this debate here, Tim Scott, I thought led it off. And dude, they used his words against him. Hey, you said we were all bought and paid for. And then you notice towards the end, Vivek's like, hey, these personal attacks. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's like the first debate, that's all you did. That's what made it entertaining.
Yep.
Right? So now you've got a second-year quarterback. People have game tape, right? People have got game tape. Like, okay, now I know how to push your buttons a little bit. And then I think, Josh was the one that called this out early on with them. It's a lot of platform talking points. We don't get really deep. Now, what's more important with this thing, before I move on to Nikki Haley, and again, Josh called this out with the big government. It's one thing to call for big government or more government. What's really shocking is that most of them are calling for big government and don't even know it. That's what's scary. That to me is what's scary, is when they call for big government, they call for a greater federal workforce, and they don't even realize that they're ones doing it. Nikki Haley, it's she was trying to take that leap. I think there was a little bit too much bickering back and forth. With Tim Scott. One thing I did think he did, I don't think he made up any ground, but he was a lot more assertive this time around. I felt last time he was a little too nice. This time, you could tell his team was like, hey, man, you need to be assertive. You need to get out there. You need to get your feet in the fire. Nikki Haley trying to go back and forth. Nikki Haley's highlight, in my opinion, and I thought Ron did a fairly good job, rebutting it, was she started bringing up some specifics about, what Ron did as governor. And they were very pointed. And Ron got away without having to answer that. Right. And some of it just because it just devolved to, back to amoebas again and people shouting back and forth. But I think Vivek, the biggest loser, Nikki Haley, close, right behind. I guess the bigger question, I'll kick it over to Josh. And especially when you look at, well, and I will say Ron's closeout, that dude, spot on. That was spot on. And he did a little bit of that in the first debate when they, Dana Perino asked, hey, if you had to vote somebody off of the island, write down who would you vote. It's funny because Chris Christie starts writing, right? And Barney calls him out on it. He's like, yes, but he was going to write Trump. And again, you didn't listen to the question, right, of who's on the stage, but he made a very clear decision that I'm going after the 45%.
Boom. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think Ron's closeout on, hey, look, this is for the voters to decide. We're not in fifth grade. And again, goes back to the first debate. I'm not playing that game. And Luke, you posted it on the Slack channel. Thanks for all those that were a part of that. But that was an instance there where there was leadership. Like, I'm not doing this. It's not the right thing to do. And then you know what? What happens? Everybody on the stage follows him, right? So I think as far as closeout, that's probably the best closeout you could have asked for from Ron or anybody else.
Yeah, I agree. That, and like you said in the first debate, he was like, "Hey, we're all right here. We don't have to raise our hands like we're, in fifth grade." And on that, he tonight he was like, "No, we're right here. If we want to debate, ask us a question, and we'll debate it. We don't have to, figure out who gets voted off the island." Christie may have written down Trump. I'm not 100% sure that Christie wrote down Trump, because Christie probably heard as he was writing, oh, those on the stage, and he probably scribbled somebody else's name down. Um, I don't try. I think Christie played it off. If he didn't write down Trump, then he played it off very well. That it was, yeah. And Luke, I think you're absolutely right. It was Vivek or Pence, and I don't think that Christie would go. You notice Christie didn't go after Vivek a whole lot, because he knows that Vivek is not going to sit there and take it. But dude, Pence is just an easy target. Is there a more milk white toast guy up on that stage than Pence? And it was funny because they gave him the Hispanic question. And you're like, and then Tim Scott decides he's going to jump in with, "Well, I have friends who are Hispanic," and you're like, "Really? Did you just say, well, no, my chief of staff and my, Senate office is Hispanic, and, she's a really great worker. And I hired her because she was the most qualified." It was like, that's not what you just started. That's not how you started that answer. I think he started that answer to realize how it sounded. It was like, oh, this is not good. So the Tim Scott's biggest problem is he thinks that because he's been in the Senate so long and that he sat on committees, that makes him qualified. And you're like, dude, that actually makes you. I think it makes you less qualified, because he sat there, talking about the economy and stuff. He was like, well, I was on the Senate Finance Committee. It's like, we are over $30 trillion in debt, Tim. I probably wouldn't be bragging about sitting on any type of finance committees or involved in the country's finances, because if you haven't paid attention, we're not in the best financial shape.
Rand Paul is the only one who could get away with that, right?
Oh,
I think
100%.
he'd be the only one that could get away with making that claim.
Yes, 100%. And so Tim is not. Tim's not going anywhere. He's not. Tim's not even going to get a cabinet position. He's just not. The one thing, and I'll bring it up, again, man, I think Ron DeSantis is the only one that has a chance of beating, either Biden or Newsom or whoever they throw up there. But he has got to stop that smiling shit at the end of his statements. It is the absolute worst. It makes him come across as fake. It makes him come across as a used car salesman. I don't like it. Ron, whoever is advising you, you should fire them, because it's the absolute worst idea to smile like that at the end of every statement.
We call for that every episode.
So what it reminds me of? When we went to Disney years and years ago, we went and we were at the Aladdin little area, and they had this guy, he's dressed up as Aladdin, and every time he saw a camera, he just get this big smile on his face, right? Because he's cheesing for all the photos and everything. That's what it reminds me of. The guy's like scowling 1 second, he looks over and he sees a camera and he goes right into smile pose. That's what DeSantis is coming across at the end of his answers, and it's like, stop it. Like, just stop that. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So we should hit up Christina Pushaw tomorrow and like really slam on that, like multiple posts about it, because dude, it is bad. It's awful. I think everyone pointed that out. Yeah, it's weird. It's like, I'm finished, and what do you think about that? It's borderline.
It's not natural.
No, and it's borderline creepy. So I want to bring this up real quick, because I don't know if there were crossed wires based on what I was saying or not. But Ron okay, so let me return to something. So Roger brought it up. It's like Ron DeSantis took the leadership position early on, where he cut in to a couple of people arguing. I don't remember exactly where it was. And then the moderators let him talk, and he came out as the winner. I was like, man, that's big, right? Because he's the leader, like Roger said. And then he tried it later, and it didn't work. late in the debate. It didn't work that time. He tried to capitalize, but it didn't work that time.
He was
But
2 for 3.
he was, yeah. But what I thought was funny, and I threw it in the Slack, was one of my pet peeves, right? Because let me preface, right, by saying, let me qualify by saying, look, I know military wives have it tough. I understand that. I get it. But when they said when Ron DeSantis like, I'm the only one on this stage, and I want to say this to Josh. I think we said it really well in the Slack channel. Some things can be captured in a text type format where it's like Josh is saying, hey, just because someone's a veteran doesn't mean they're going to be a good politician. I 100% agree. We'll say Dan Crenshaw, for instance, or the fat lieutenant colonel who ratted on Donald Trump, right? But at the same time, it's not an immediate disqualifier either. And I think we all agreed on that. So Ron DeSantis brought up, I'm the only one on this stage with military service. And then the moderators go, oh, well, Nikki Haley's husband's in the military too. And I was like, oh, snap. I was like, oh.
Even
So
my
Roger-
wife, dude, she's like,
Okay,
what the
okay.
heck does
That's
that
what I
mean?
want to ask you, Roger. That's what I want to ask you. What did your wife say? That's what I want to ask you. I want to clear the air on that one.
Your reaction was exactly, if you could put it into words, and I forget the exact. She's like, so what the F does that matter? Like spouses in the military matter now. And as soon as she said that, I mean, you came out with that. I'm like, dude, she just literally said, and you know what? Here's the important thing though. She said that, you said that. So that means, there are many, many millions of Americans that are also saying the exact same thing. Right.
I guarantee you, Nikki Haley has a sticker on the back windshield of her car. It says, military spouse, toughest job in the military. I guarantee you she's got.
Okay, so I'm glad I wasn't like, I'm not trying to call out military spouses, man. I know it's tough. I get that. But it's like, that's not exactly the same thing. And that's why I'm so glad that Roger, your wife, had that reaction. But yeah,
to be fair, to be fair for Nikki Haley, the moderator said that, and not Nikki Haley.
Right.
Right. So, just to be fair to her, the moderator brought that up, but it was like, yeah, you looked at you're like, so.
Well, and my wife served too, right? So for the people out there who
Yep.
don't know, my wife's a veteran, so she was in the Air Force. So it just made it even like, so now spouses are veterans, right? Okay, got it, because that's the way it came off. And you're absolutely right, Josh. It was the the moderators like, that just wasn't very well played. You didn't do her any favors.
Speaking of the moderators, we've got a red coat, a literal red coat, as a moderator, Stuart Varney. And then I'm not sure about the Univision moderator. I was so distracted by whatever was on her neck. I don't know if that's a birthmark or a scar or a tattoo of a comet hitting the moon. I was so distracted by her. But look, man, if she, Stuart Varney's a U.S. citizen, man. Hey, more we're a country of immigrants, right? Hey, more power to you. But at the same time, it's like I felt like the Univision moderator. Like, Josh, what do you think? If you could go back and listen to her accent, it almost seems like she's faking it. It almost seems like she's faking her accent.
Oh,
it's like,
Lord.
It was so bad.
Is she not Hispanic enough for you?
No, not at all.
Oh, Lord.
I don't know if she was faking her accent or not. I'd have to go back and listen. What I do know is there was a number of questions, and especially the one she asked Ron DeSantis about the slavery question in the Florida academics. Midway, probably 4 words into her question, I was like, I don't even, what is she saying? I don't know if she had a stroke in the middle of it, or if there were some English words that she really wanted to say that she couldn't pronounce. I don't know what it was, but when she got to the end of the question and Ron started answering, I was like, what are you answering? Because I didn't hear that. Right?
Dude, my closed caption didn't even pick it up. I'm just sitting there
the closed caption,
garble.
Dude, all my closed caption showed was a picture of Joe Biden when she said that. It was just like, blah, 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 blah. Right? That's it. I was like, what was the question? Ron must have heard it, man, because he was starting to answer, and I was like, bro, I wouldn't answer that question. I'd be like, can you repeat the question, please? Because I didn't know. So I'd be like,
in English this time.
Right, yeah. And so But as far as like what she had on her neck, I think is that when your skin loses pigmentation.
Yeah,
Yeah, like melanoma or
is that,
something
or
or whatever they
no,
call it.
like it's not
Not
no, it's not
melanoma.
alopecia.
melanoma.
It's shit. I can't remember that. It's got to be
Yeah, I
right.
can't remember. I think that's what it was though, or it was a tattoo of a comet, like Haley's comet, streaking through outer space, um, or something. I don't know.
So Roger,
But
I'm
it
gonna
was
ask. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
So I'm gonna ask Roger this, or throw this out to you guys. It's not really even a question. It's just like, what did that debate even matter? Because if you believe the polls right now, this debate is about who's in second place by, you know, tens, 40 or so points. So it's like, what did that matter? I mean, why even have it? You know what I'm saying? It's like, tell me why this debate matters, Roger. It's like, does it matter? Or because Trump's in the lead. He's in the lead by any objective, you know, uh, by any objective measure. Trump's in the lead. So why are we having this debate? And I'll be very anxious to see what the ratings are on this debate. Like, how many people actually tuned in? Because does it really matter?
It does matter because I mean, one, there's no guarantee that Trump's going to make it to the election. I mean, there's a lot of legal stuff out there, and as we've all discussed previously on episodes, it's different if it's one charge for this or that or whatever. I mean, dude, they've only got to get him on one, right? And I get it. There's an appeals process or whatever, but depending on how these things pan out, he could lose support. Hell, he could be in prison by the time the election comes around if things, roll the wrong way. So you are looking for not necessarily the number two, but hey, I think there's still a belief out there, and rightfully so, that I don't know what the percentage of it is, but man, I throw it up there's a good 30-35% that are like, hey, this dude may not even make it to the election, without being behind bars. And at that point, you do have to look at a number two. Um, and I like Ron's answer, towards the end is, hey, at the day, and I thought this was the best question. This was one of the best questions that was asked all night. Is I think Dana asked him, mathematically, how do you win? And she was referring to the polls and this and that. And Ron gave a great answer. Hey, man, polls don't vote, right? Polls don't vote. People vote. And there was, we saw it in the 2016. We saw it in the 2020. I think we'll see it in the 2024. Now don't get me wrong. You would rather be in Donald Trump's position as far as polls go. You would rather be up by 40 in every single poll than down by 40, right? But we've seen in 2016 and seen in 2020 that, hey, man, a lot of these people tell you one answer in the poll, they don't necessarily go and vote that way. And because the margin is so slim in places like Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, hey, dude, you only have to be 1 or 2 points off. Nice shirt. You don't have to be 1 or 2 points off to actually make a difference, in the election.
So Luke's got it's a great question, and I'll ask Roger this since he's the hardcore MAGA guy, out of the three of us. Do you think they tuned in tonight? Do you think the diehard, dyed in the wool, I'm my voters for Trump, ride or die? You think they watched it tonight?
I think the extreme MAGA supporters didn't, because I don't think they're really watchers of Fox News. They've probably already tuned Fox News out. But I do think a lot of your mainstream Trump supporters, I think they did watch, and they should watch, because you've brought it up several times, and I'd say with all the candidates up there are some, it's easier to do with a DeSantis, it's easier to do with a Trump, and it's easier to do with a Bergen, where you have executive actions to answer for. There are things that you have done, right, wrong, or different, no matter how we feel, that we can hold your feet to the fire, right? So I think that I'm hoping that that middle of the road and slightly to the right, all the way up to the extreme position, the MAGA supporters, I think they did watch it. But I think the far extreme, I don't know what's that, maybe 5-10%. Dude, they tuned Fox News out. A year ago. They're watching OAN if it's still on, or what's the Newsmax or whatever the hell they're watching.
So based on what you just said, should Trump debate?
So as a citizen, he should debate. As a citizen, I believe that everybody should debate. As his strategist or campaign manager, hell no. Why would you? Because he's not going to gain any more voters. All he's going to do is lose voters. Why would you debate?
That's a
Okay,
good point.
that's fair.
It's a good point. I mean, and Roger's been saying that in our texts behind the scenes in our little 3-person chat group we got. Roger's been very consistent on that, and I understand. I don't, as a citizen, I don't like it, but I get it.
Well, you know
Josh.
what though? Because we believe in our stances. Sorry, cut you off. We believe, and we've said this before. If you truly believe in everything that you've done is the right way to do it, and the best decision you could make at the time with the information that you have, dude, you have no problem getting up there. It's like I want the time, right? And I'm going to get out there with conviction, and I'm going to tell you why I did what I did. You may not like it or whatever, but I believe in the cause. I believe in my actions. I believe in my principles, and I'm going to go out there and defend that. So on the individual level, that's in all three of us.
And that's why Doug Burgum's did so well in all 3 of our eyes, because he gets up there, he knows what he's saying. His advisors, whatever, he's just like, no, I got this. I got this. He gets up there and says what he believes. And it's just like, and it works, right? Because how many times during the chat tonight did we say, how did you answer this question incorrectly? Because you're listening to your advisors too much. You're listening to these people who are looking at polls all day, and you're not actually going back to what you really believe. Even to say all of them up there, except for Burgum, all of them up there. It's like, why did you answer the question that way? Except for Burgum and Christie, put it to you that way. Why did you answer the question that way? This is too easy. I called them all stupid. Because it's like, this is too easy. A lot of these, the border questions, so on and so forth, it became too hard. So their advisors told them, if it comes to the border, if it becomes too sticky for you, or Ukraine, if it becomes too sticky for you, RDS did this. Ron DeSantis did this. Ukraine became too sticky, so he pivoted to the border. It's like, what are you doing? This is too easy. So that's why Doug Burgum, in my mind, did so well, because whatever, bro. He answered, he's being true to himself. So Josh, I'm gonna kick it to you. I mean, we could go on for probably an hour and a half longer, but our sound and audio guy, we can't pay him overtime. So Josh, what are your thoughts?
So, final thoughts. I was just I took a quick look at X, aka Twitter, and even Adam Kinzinger, like one of the worst people on the planet, right? And another one of those examples of just because you have military service doesn't mean you're going to be a good statesman. Uh, Even he was like, Vivek got completely steamrolled tonight. Like he left there looking like a clown. Um, so, final thoughts. I don't think Trump lost any voters tonight. By and large, I still think, I think, Ron's going to pick up, maybe a few points after this, especially with, some donors, especially after, he spammed your phone and your email inbox. But yeah, I don't think Trump lost any voters, but at the end of the day, again, for the people out there, you're going to have to decide. We know that Trump can't win a general. There's no mathematical path for him. We talk about the math, not working out for DeSantis or anybody else, that was on the stage tonight. There's no mathematical path for Trump to win the electoral college. Trump is not going to win Pennsylvania. Trump is not going to win, any of the northern states, Michigan, Wisconsin. He's not going to win any of those states. It's not going to happen. He may or may not win Georgia. That Georgia's a question mark, right? And when Georgia is a question mark, you're not in a good position, especially if you can't go in and take Pennsylvania and Michigan. It's just not. So, and people have to decide whether you want another 4 years of Biden, or depending upon the timing of when they get rid of him, because they're getting rid of Biden. I think we saw that a couple of days ago. I think we got that confirmation. So you get another 4 years of Biden, or you potentially get 8 years of Newsom. So, or whoever they throw in there. So, people got to decide. Trump's an entertainer. It feels good. He gets people fired up. But at the end of the day, he's the main reason why we have a Christopher Wray, a Mark Milley, and an Anthony Fauci. So, I want people to think about that. Stop thinking with their emotions and think with some logic and some common sense. So, those are my final thoughts.
Real quick, Roger, before I kick it to you, I typed in the chat. I have one more quick thing, and I can't even remember what it was. But as Josh was talking, I'm like, look, folks, go to @culperscanteencup.com or @culperscanteencup on Twitter and just interact with us a little bit, man. Come on. I know y'all all listen. We've got a ton of followers. Come on, man. Help us out. Help us out a little bit. Damon does. I'll give a shout out to Damon, man. Damon, thank you. But the rest of y'all, don't be scared, man. Comment, man. We want to hear it. That's the platform we're primarily on now. So, yeah, hit us up, man. Definitely hit us up. And appreciate y'all listening. And Roger, I'll kick it to you to close us out.
My final thought on it is I've got two. Talk about the purpose of the debates. The purpose of the debates is for somebody to also break out. I used this analogy earlier, I think in our text or Slack or whatever. It's like, hey, man, there's a lot that Ron has going for him. I would rather have 8 more years of that, this and that, and not have to go through this again in 4 years. But, it's I can't beat Usain Bolt, so I need him to drop out of the race so I can win. No, it's up to those other candidates to gain their share and become faster and become the better candidate. That's what I'm looking for in the debate. What I did realize, and I know this is kind of like a closeout, but you guys can interject if you want or give thoughts. But did you notice the Fox push of that kind of the anti-Biden GOP talking points with the opening segment with all the statistics? Then they showed the live feed of the border. I thought that was very, very interesting. I don't know if CNN or anybody else would have done that. So anyway, thanks again to everybody that listened. It's going to listen to this episode. Thanks to all those. We actually, the numbers that participate on Slack, it's pretty cool. It's direct interaction. And, for those out there that participate, it is a window, a small window, a sliver, a snippet of what myself, Josh, and Luke go through the majority of our waking hours. So be safe out there. Keep your canteen cups full of some good whiskey and tightly secured.